Welcome to Property Mates, where your hosts Tim Perry and Felix Tang discuss all things property and everything else in between.
Hey guys, welcome to Property Mates. It's January 5th, 2022 today, and we are recording an episode all about goal setting.
Awesome, Tim. How was your Christmas, mate? Did you have a nice time off?
Yeah, it was good. I spent some time with the family, which was nice. Managed to stay in New South Wales, which was good. Came back not too long ago. I actually came back yesterday from my trip, which was nice.
Yeah, oh, nice.
How
Yeah,
about yourself, Felix?
yeah, it was good. Spent some time with the family and the kids. Spent a week in Wollongong visiting my sister-in-law, and the weather was great, so that's always nice and relaxing. But yeah, we're back into it, and I think it was kind of a timely moment where I was thinking we should definitely record, a video on goal setting and how to actually succeed. Because getting into the start of the year, it's a New Year's resolution. Everyone's thinking about what they've got planned and goals they want to have in mind, whether it's a diet, let's buy a house, buy a car, or just get fit in general. And I found that in the past, and this is probably where I really wanted to kind of talk about, is that you have some goals set in mind, but you never kind of really achieve that to the fullness, because you never have certain measures and places set in stone that are going to allow you to keep you accountable for it. So I thought it'd be really good for us to kind of just jump in and share what we've done in, I guess, in the past, but also what we've got planned for the next 12 months. So, yeah, man.
All right, sounds good. Well, one of the things that I like when it comes to this sort of thing, I have some of the real estate agents that I work with, just over the break, we were messaging each other and saying, why don't we set a date, January 2nd, we'll share what our goals are and keep each other accountable. Felix, like, to you, what is a goal? Like, what does that actually mean?
A goal, yeah. A goal to me is more just having a clear vision in terms of what I want to achieve in a specific time frame, and that is then broken down into specific steps and stages in terms of what I can achieve and attain on a daily to monthly kind of basis to reaching that end target. So it is something that for me, it's kind of thinking about where I want to be, something that I've envisioned over the last probably week in terms of whether it be my business, my health, my family, and kind of putting measurable steps in place. That's what it looks like for me. Yeah, but
And so like for you, is goal setting like an annual thing? Is this something that you do, once at the start of each year, or what does that look like for you?
yes, what I've found is that in the past it was very much you do it at the start of the year, you review it after 6 months, and see where you're at. But I feel that that stretch of 6 to 12 months is quite challenging to kind of get through, and that level of momentum just drops off after time. So
Mm.
what I've found that works is working off maybe a 6 to 8 week cycle. So you might have a bigger goal for the year, and then break that down into like, 6 week targets. And then that way it seems a lot more attainable. But the way we kind of do it is we'll do like a 6 week sprint, and then we'll have a 2 week breather and kind of reassess how we've gone along that path to see, okay, well, have we done well? What have we done really good? Where can we change? Where can we pivot? Just gives us time to reassess, but also gives us time to kind of breathe and just kind of absorb everything that we've done, as opposed to just trying to run that whole 12 months. So
Mm.
I found that works really well. So for the business, I might have a specific number for the year. I'll break that down into what it looks like in a month. Then I'll break it down in terms of what it looks like in a week and how many people I need to be in contact with. And then I'll kind of set my agenda, my weekly calendar around that. And that's how it typically allows me to keep myself accountable. Because if I'm not hitting those numbers, then I'll know that I'm going to start falling behind, and how much I need to do in terms of catching back up. But I found that works really well, because when I do have that 2 week breather, it gives me a chance to just sit back and not feel like I've got to run out there and do more meetings. It gives me a chance to sit back and go, okay, well, what's worked really well in these 6 weeks, and where have I really made really good, I guess, contact and progress. And then if those smaller items have worked really well, then for the next 6 weeks, I focus more heavily on that and dive more deeper into that, as opposed to just doing the same thing over and over again. So for me, I found that works well. Even from a health point of view, what training exercises, where you're getting results, what's working, what's not working. But yeah, but how about yourself, man? What's worked well for you?
Yeah, it's. I think mine's probably similar to yours. I feel like there are differences. So with business, obviously there's a dollar figure attached to a lot of things. I also one of the other things, I was really focused last year on dollar figures because I wanted to earn X amount of money, and I was doing exactly what you were doing. So for example, my own one was to lodge 3.5 million minimum per month. So that was like the minimum that I wanted to lodge. And then I was doing exactly that. I was saying, okay, if I want to lodge 3.5 million, if the average loan size is X, how many people do I need to be calling every day to get to that? So I had an annual goal and I could break it down into chunks. So you could basically say, if I had a call block of an hour per day, I got to do this many dials to hit my target. So it was exactly what you were saying. I think for me, for this year, for 2022, I wanted to change that metric around a little bit. And the two things that I wanted to focus on was one, the number of individuals or families that I help actually purchase property. And
Mm.
two, the other thing that I wanted to measure instead was the conversion ratio of like a lead into someone who settles, because I want to figure out what is it. Is there something in my dialogue, in my process? Are there leaks somewhere that are preventing people from actually converting and becoming customers? And then the other thing as well on top of that is, of the people who I've served and who I've written a loan for, how many of them are actually giving me referrals? Are they referring me to their friends? Because someone can tell you they've done that, or that you've done a great job for them, but if they're not referring their friends and family, then they're not actually, like, they're not really like voting with their feet, so to speak.
Yeah.
Like, it's one thing to give someone lip service and say, hey, thanks, but it's a completely different thing to actually pass your someone's phone number on to a friend or family member, because within that there's like a trust element. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, to refer a business, it takes trust. You've got to trust that the business will serve them well. So for 2022, I wanted to change my metrics a little bit and focus on those indicators rather than just dollar figures. It's just a little bit of an experiment. It's similar things I do, with going to the gym or anything health related. I just try and experiment with different goals. At the start of last year, I was messing around with calories, like how many calories I was eating. Then I was messing around with trying different recipes that had, say, for example, fewer carbs, or like
Mm.
a higher vegetable or protein ratio on the plate. So I was messing around with numbers again, and then I was looking at how things looked on the plate. And sometimes I just, with food, it's like I'll eat till I feel a certain level of fullness and then stop. And then I do that for a number of weeks and then see, you can obviously, with your body, you can see the results and feel the results. So for me, it's like, it depends on what category we're talking about. If it's business, as I said to you before, that's how I'm looking at it this year. With health, this year I'm actually like, it'll go back to metrics. I want to like measure to some extent, if I say this, but it will change again in 6 weeks. But like, for example, I'll measure reps and sets, time under tension, something like that. So I'll time my exercises a little bit more. Wait 6 weeks. That's usually a cycle that I like, and then stop and assess from there and see if I've made any progress.
Yeah, and that's one of the biggest things. I mean, for success in anything in life, you have to keep a journal of it, and that's what
Mm,
I found, is that's how you can really kind of see your progress, and especially if you're working out, right? And one of the biggest things about people who give up, especially when they have a New Year's resolution to lose weight or go on a diet, is they'll jump to the gym, they'll smash out 1 or 2 weeks, and they
mm,
go, "Man, I haven't lost anything," and then they just get demotivated and go, "All right, we'll just go back to eating whatever." But that's the thing. Not only does it take time, but it takes you looking at the paper and the metrics as opposed to looking at your appearance, because there's something obviously happening in the background. And the first few months you may not see that physically, but if you continue on that path, you're going to start seeing those results uncover, and within 2 to 3 months you're going to see body weight, body fat content coming down. It's not just your weight, but the way you physically look and your
yep,
performance. You're going to see you're lifting heavier weights, or you're lasting longer with your exercises, so your endurance and your stamina is increasing. And
yeah,
that's, I think, succeeding like in anything that you have for goals and stuff. And I love what you've kind of got there in terms of impact, as opposed of like having a monetary figure, because I've found that impacting lives is much more important than what the dollar figure looks like, because then ultimately in the day you're just chasing the dollar figure as opposed to trying to really help.
it's so elusive. it's so elusive chasing money. Like it was just the other night, I was watching the show about people who pan for gold and dig for gold in Alaska, and these people are on like this never ending spiral of like looking, and it's like it's hard physical work, it's dangerous, there's risk involved, and it almost reminds me of like, sometimes you go to the casino and you see people just slapping the button, and they think that the machine that they're sitting on belongs to them, and it's like the next slaps. And I feel like if you're chasing money, it's as elusive as chasing the jackpot at a poker machine. But I feel like one thing that for me, the things that will always get you to success is one, consistency. So every day, like you're marching, you're doing what you need to do, you're
Mm.
walking toward your goal. And then two, like rather than chasing like just a hard dollar figure, chasing like what impact are you having on, or measuring rather, what impact are you having on society and on people's lives. Now, like, don't get me wrong, like it's obviously, I think that it's important to measure money as well and to be in control of your finances, because otherwise, like, how you gonna pay your bills? So it's not to discount that as being important. I just think that, like, if you are impacting people's lives and if you're really delivering a good product and service, I just feel like money will flow to you anyway. So it probably becomes secondary.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I mean, very much in the property space. So, if you're looking to purchase your home this year, what I've found working in the industry is that once you get a loan and a mortgage, you typically have three months from a pre-approvals perspective to get
Yeah.
everything done. And a lot of people get out there, they're excited, and they start looking for property within the first 2 weeks, and they're just pumped and looking for stuff. And then maybe 3 weeks after, 3 or 4 weeks, they just start getting disheartened because they can't find the right property. They're getting priced out, and they're finding that the area that they were initially interested in just doesn't meet their budget.
Mm.
And that really comes down to planning well. If you plan well for success, and you plan in terms of looking in the right area, but also having attainable goals as opposed to unrealistic goals, you're going to put yourself in a better position to succeed. And very much a property, after 2 or 3 weeks, if you give up, the good opportunity might come up on the 6th or 7th week. But if
Yeah.
you've given up, you'll never be able to see that unfold
Yeah.
because you've already kind of put yourself out of the market
Yeah.
space.
Yeah.
And very
There's
much a
a
lot of
whole
people
book
would,
on that.
yeah,
There's an awesome book on that called 3 Feet from Gold. I think it's by Napoleon Hill from memory. I think it's by him. I'm not sure, but the book's definitely called 3 Feet from Gold, and it's about a guy who he was looking, obviously searching for gold, digging for it, and then after X number of years or X number of time, gives up. Someone else comes in
uh,
who's got a better vision, a better strategy, and he knows that there's definitely a big gold vein somewhere. Buys this guy's plot of land for pennies on the dollar because the guy's so disheartened,
yeah,
and then literally finds gold 3 feet from where the other man stopped. And it's exactly what you said. It's like, if and people say this has become a little bit like overused, but you only really, like, the failure only really happens once you quit. Um, and I think if you've got a goal, and obviously a property goal is one that we should talk about on this episode, but like, if you've got a goal to buy a property, like, you've got to be consistent, you've got to show up every day, you need to get on the internet, be looking for properties, engage people like yourself and myself. And you know what, actually, speaking of that, if we were to break down and if we were to use the example of buying property as a goal, like if we said in 2022, for first home buyers out there and investors and anyone else who's looking to get into the market this year, and if they've got a goal of buying a property, what are the steps that they can take? Like, how would we break down their goal so that
yeah.
it becomes attainable for 2022? What would that look like for you?
Well, the first step they would have to definitely take is to find out what they can afford to buy, because
Yeah,
that's going to dictate exactly where you can go. I mean, unless you've got endless supply of money, you can just go anywhere.
yeah,
But it's got to be something that allows them to understand. Have some region in terms of where to look for.
yeah.
So that would be the first step. Once you understand what you can
So
borrow.
goal is Yeah. So goal is to buy property. First
Yeah,
step is, and then we break that down. So step number one might be to speak to a mortgage broker,
correct.
and then
Find
yeah,
out
and
exactly what you
within
can
that,
borrow. Next step would
Exactly.
be to find out, what are you like. I always, when I sit down with the client, I always say, what are your key must haves and your would likes, and kind of I go through and sit down and actually go through like a little charting exercise so they can kind of pinpoint exactly what's critical to them. So
Yeah.
really understanding what your goals from a house perspective is will give you a
Yeah.
clearer vision in terms of what that property needs to look like.
Yeah.
So once you
I'm,
like,
I agree with that, because if you don't know, like if you don't know whether it's a house, or for you to live in, or whether it's investment, like if you don't know that, then
oh
it's you'll end up with two branches on one tree, because you're servicing for buying an own or occupied property. The deposit required is going to
yeah,
be different from that if it's an investment property, because there are different caps on LVRs with most lenders for investments as opposed to own occupied. You don't have the benefit of using investment income when you're
right.
purchasing an occupied, so your servicing is going to change. So I absolutely agree with you. If you've got an overarching goal, which is to buy property, step number one is to figure out, like, and these don't have to necessarily be like one, two, three, four, five. They can happen at the same time, but it's what type of purchase do you want to make, and then how much you can afford,
Yeah,
and then
and you raised a good point about that investment and homeowners. I get that all the time where I'll sit down with the client, they go, we don't know if we want to live in the place or we want to rent, look for investment property. And that,
yeah,
it may take a bit of time to kind of map it out and kind of really understand what the ultimate goal is and then break it back and say, well, this would probably work better for you. And once you get a better idea in terms of what your servicing capacity is, because, yeah, from an investment point of view, because you're getting that rental income, you might be able to borrow more. So it might be more favorable for you to invest. But once you've got that picture in terms of, okay, I can borrow this, I know exactly what I want to buy. Then it's more like, how do I get myself exposed to those opportunities, and whether they decide to do it themselves and hunt for the property themselves, or they choose to utilize the services of a buyer's agent. What I would say, whether if you use buyer's agent or do it yourself, the best thing is to get that level of exposure. Like what we're saying is to be out on every open home, every auction, be speaking to every agent in that specific area that you're looking at targeting and telling them of your specific brief so they know the type of property you're looking for and they can pinpoint that as well. The more specific you are, the better it's going to be. Um, I hear it all the time when people just say, "Oh, look, just looking for a house, 3 bedroom brick house," you know. And agents like, "Sweet, I've got heaps of 3 bedroom brick houses," and they'll show them. Then they're like, "That's not suitable." They go, "Well, why? It's a 3 bed," and that's why the more specific you are, the more time you're going to save. Because if you're saying, "Hey, I want to, open backyard," or "I want to renovate it," or "I want something that's completely done," or "It needs to be a double garage," it allows the agent or whoever you utilize and help you search for that property to be more specific to your brief. So then you're not wasting time on looking at properties that aren't suitable.
yeah,
The more specific you are, the better it is. So that will be the next step that I would normally say is reach out to as many contacts in the area and do
yeah.
that.
Look, I could not agree more, because the other thing as well is, like, if you've got, it's so exhausting looking at property, like even looking online and just scrolling through and trawling and going through all the pictures and reading descriptions. It's a lot, like it's a lot of incoming data, and it can be quite tiring. So I just think if you don't, like, if you're literally not filtering for what is actually going to be appropriate for you, you're just going to, you will waste your time. And I reckon that for a lot of people it's demotivating. That there are a lot of things in the search for property that are demotivators. Like it's having an overabundance of supply, because then you get like decision fatigue, and then it's like constantly losing at auctions as well is another thing that
Mm.
causes fatigue. Um, getting gazumped, deals falling through, things like finance not getting approved, anything like that. Those things can cause fatigue, which can prevent you from actually reaching that goal. So I 100% agree with you. If you don't spend time up front, being specific about what you want and where you want to end up, and in what type of property you want to end up with, then you might, it will be more challenging to get to where you want to go, because of all the things that can create fatigue on the way to that goal.
Yeah, and look, we're still in a market where it's heavily competitive. I mean, we saw what happened in 2021, and properties literally selling within a day. I
Yeah.
mean, with more stock hitting the market at the end of this or end of last quarter, we did find those days on market did push out a bit more, but I wouldn't say significantly more. maybe only by the week. So it gave
Yeah.
people a bit more of an opportunity to breathe, because mainly, I think mostly was because vendors wanted to at least go to one open home before selling, to understand what the market was telling them. So as we transition into this new year, what I would say we'll see is that we'll still see a very competitive market. There's still a lot of hungry buyers out there, still limited stock. Until that stock level increases and vendors' expectations start to come in line with the market, then we'll start to seeing a steady pace in that market space. But
Yeah.
what I'm noticing is that obviously, since there's so many buyers, a lot of the agents have so many, obviously, potential buyers to choose from. How do you distinguish yourself out from the crowd? And
Yeah.
that's one of the biggest challenges. Is like, well, if I don't buy the property, someone else is going to buy. The agent's like, well, I can just sell it to whoever I want. And
Yeah.
it's how do you get yourself ahead of that and kind of stand out? And there's
Yeah.
specific steps that I take to kind of make myself kind of a bit more distinguishable amongst the crowd. And one of the things is just building that level of relationship and rapport. And we spoke about this in the past, was that, a real estate agent rather be doing a deal with a mate as opposed to a stranger when they don't know their personal circumstance or, their
Yeah.
finances, because they've got comfort around that. Um, and so what I always say is, you can call up an agent, speak to them over the phone. That's one touch point. When you send them an email with your brief of what you're specifically looking for, that's another level of touch point. But, when you actually go to an open home and introduce yourself and tell them who you are, and the email and the call that you've had with them, that brings another level, because now they're putting a name, a face, and context between everything that happened leading up to it. And now, if they're seeing you at open homes, they're going to start recognizing you and calling you by your first name and think, oh, actually, I'm listing this property down the road in a couple of weeks. Would you like to see that beforehand? So that's how you put yourself, in a better position, but also get exposed to more opportunities. Um, very, very,
Absolutely.
yeah, very simple process, but it's something that a lot of people just don't do.
Yeah, you just like you just got to be organized. From in terms of this goal of purchasing, from a financial perspective, it's similar. You get yourself, obviously you want to get yourself pre-approved. If you're in a strong financial position, if your other debts are under control, if your financial position hasn't changed, you might be confident to sign a 66W or other things which make your application more appealing. There are things that you can do from a finance perspective so that you're a better like proposition than someone else. Like if you and I went to buy a property and we both offer 500K for the property, how do they determine who gets it? Well, one of us might say that like we are more flexible in terms of settlement, and the other or we might say we're willing to sign a 66W and waive the right to cooling off. Like there are different things that you can do, and those things are determined by how comfortable and how confident you are with the finance that you've got behind you. Like if you've got no finance, or if you're not pre-approved or whatever, then you're taking a stab in the dark. And what happens if you buy a property and then you can't get finance right on the other side?
Yeah,
Like, do you know what I mean? So this is why having someone like you and me working in your corner is so important, because like how would the regular person who's just looking for a house know that if their house is under a certain size or their apartment's under a certain size, if they're within a certain proximity to high tension wires, and if they need to borrow more than 80%, how are they going to know whether or not they're going to get money? They don't know. So if you've got a goal, like you need to, as we've been saying, you've got to reverse engineer the steps to get you into that
absolutely.
property. And so that when you go, like you can make, and what I always say to the people that I work with is I want to go through this process with you as meticulously as we can, so that when you bid or when you make an offer, you're making an offer with confidence. Like if someone engages you as a buyer's agent, finance shouldn't even be a
Well,
question.
yeah,
They should just be confident that like Felix is going out, he's looking for properties, he's going to make bids, and we've already got like finance is not an issue. We've got our brief, we know what we want. He can confidently go and secure a property for us, and like all of the ducks are already lined up. Because if they're not, like you've not taken that structured approach toward your goal. And it's, to tie it back to what we were talking before, if you don't have structure with business goals, if you don't have metrics and things that you can tick off and check, how do you know that you're accomplishing anything? So
yeah.
if you're not, like, if you're not accomplishing things, and if you don't feel that sense of momentum moving forward toward your goal, it's not something that's going to like keep you fired up and keep you driven. Like the I see, like, I do a lot, and everyone, a lot of brokers do a lot of pre-approvals that never settle, like the people never buy. And it's not that difficult to tell, not all the time, but sometimes it's not that difficult to tell the people that are ultimately not going to buy. They lose motivation, you know. And the things that we've talked about are the factors that lead to them losing motivation: fatigue from other areas, being gazumped, bidding on, going to, like, if we get someone approved to purchase a $2.2 million property, and they keep looking at properties that start or are advertised at 2.2 million in today's market,
Mm,
you need to be a tier above. So if you want to buy, like, if you want to end up spending 2 million, you need to be looking at properties that are being advertised for like 1.6 to 1.8, so that you're the big fish in the small
correct.
pond.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. It's
and that way you can avoid the fatigue of constantly losing, losing, losing.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. The conversation I always hear from a lot of buyers is I should have bought last year or I should have bought before, and
Yeah,
and that's the thing. If you had a specific goal that you wanted to attain, and then you had specific steps and strategies that you need to take to get there, you would find that you'd be able to get there a lot sooner. But the biggest thing that I find is that a lot of the media and stuff is what puts a lot of people off. So they might be trekking well on that path, and then a headline might come up: property price is going to drop another 20%. Just wait, and then they kind of put a break
yeah,
on that. What I always say is, don't listen to all that stuff. Just focus on your own personal and financial lifestyle goals, because ultimately, at the end of the day, anything can change externally. But if you're in a position where you can do something, and if it suits your family, household, and your lifestyle and your finances, by all means, just do it. Um, I was having a conversation with a couple of friends over Christmas, and the topic came about, oh, should we have bought and stuff, and a lot of friends say, oh, we've missed the boat, and I say, well, what boat? Because in property, if you look at the last 40 years, it's just progressively gone up. So how many boats are you going to miss out on before you realize you should have at least got onto one of them? Um, and that's the thing, like, planning your goals shouldn't be based on what other people's goals are. You should plan it based on your own, and not to worry too much about what else is happening on the outside.
yeah,
And by having those metrics in place so you can see where property is going, you better put yourself in a better position and say, you know what, this is exactly where prices are selling for. I'm in a good position to buy it. I should just be buying it as opposed to waiting for a bargain, which may never come. So, by all means, I think the steps and stuff that you've mentioned are really, really good kind of ways for people who are looking to getting into the property space. Is to, if your budget is 2 million, look at 1.6. There's more often enough it's going to sell for 1.8. But it gives you more room and more properties to look at, as opposed to just pigeonholing yourself in a very small pond, which is
yeah,
where what a lot of people do. Because ultimately, in the day, we've got 2 million. Yeah, we want to spend the 2 million, want to get the nice house, really reach that top end.
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
but if
Look, you said a lot in that last thing, and I just think, like, because you're right, people are always talking about what's going around in the media, but how often is the media wrong, or how often are they pushing some agenda? Like, I can't, it, you know, they can't even get the weather right. Like, how are they going to get something as complicated as property right?
oh
Like,
well,
people, all the banks, like, that have got unlimited budgets, the best economists, all those sorts of things. None of them thought that property
20,
prices were going to do what they did after.
25%, like 25% on average growth in the last 12 months.
Yeah,
And they were
yeah,
expecting it to drop 20%.
yeah.
That's crazy.
The
So,
thing is this, Felix, like, if someone, look, I definitely don't have a crystal ball, but my thought is this: if they say, like, if the banks predict property prices to rise, or if they predict property prices to fall, the question is like, why are they making that prediction in the first place? Like, what does it, you know what I mean? Like, are they doing that because it helps them in some way? Like, does it get people more interested in, taking out more debt, et cetera, et cetera? Like, are they doing it for the benefit of the consumer, or are they doing it for the
yeah.
benefit of themselves? So I think, it's always important to just apply, like, a little bit of critical thinking to what's happening in the market. And to not be driven. If someone says like Bitcoin is going to rise 1,000% by the end of this year, do you buy it because they said that? Like, how would they know?
Yeah.
If you knew that property prices were going to rise or that any asset class was going to rise, like, what's the benefit of telling the whole world? Because look, it. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, you can get more people psyched up about purchasing, and then collectively we'll all push property prices up. But I just think that everyone's individual scenario is different. Not everyone is ready to buy, not everyone is ready to sell. And if you're making decisions to buy or sell based on someone else, you're going to be unsatisfied. Like, sometimes I feel bad because a lot of times people get pressured into selling their house. They go down the rabbit hole of like getting into inviting someone in to give them an appraisal and ultimately to sell. And then they recognize on the back end of that, oh, like I've just sold and now I've got to buy back into the same market. And like your net position hasn't really changed. And I've been subjected to that myself. We were just talking previously about like a project that I'd run, and I kind of realized like I'd sold an apartment to purchase into this project at a time when property was trending upwards. Doing the project took a lot of time and effort on my part, and sometimes I think back and wonder, man, if I just held on to that apartment and let it grow, I'd probably be in the same net position without having gotten my hands dirty. So, there obviously there's value and a learning experience to be had in doing your own property development projects, but sometimes like just ignoring the noise and staying in your own lane is the best course, and you only really
Absolutely.
realize that after the fact.
But
So I think, and to tie it back to goals, like I think if you've got a goal and if you've got something that excites you, it's so important that you have like the gumption to stay that course and to walk toward that goal each and every single day, because ultimately if you're deviated by someone else's plan for you, there's no satisfaction in that.
yeah, well, we were just talking earlier. Now we've got some really good goals that we want to obviously share on this platform that we've got with Property Mates. And one of the biggest things that we want to do is be able to expose and give people an insight in terms of how to manufacture equity in the property space. And one of the areas that we both have really good passion in is that development space and looking for opportunities. I mean, in my space as a buyer's agent, a lot of stuff that I do is look for duplex sites, townhouse sites, and subdivisions and stuff like that. And what we want to do is through this platform over the next 12 months is actually share with everyone the processes that you need to take to actually have success in that area, because we do find that it is a very challenging space to get into, especially for people who don't have that level of experience. And this is what I do on a day-to-day basis, is actually source those sites. And Tim's got that expertise, and where he's mentioned he's actually done a townhouse project, so we can definitely share with you over this period of time what are the mistakes and what are the things to look out for, but also how to succeed really well in that and break that down from a step-by-step basis.
Yeah,
um,
definitely. And look, that's a completely different thing. Like if you've got a goal to do that, like that's a completely different. Do you know what I mean? Like there's a different set of things that we need to talk about for doing something. Like purchasing to live in has its own subset of goals. Like if your larger goal is for an owner occupied purchase, there's a subset of goals that are attached to that. Investment properties, there's a subset of goals attached to that. Duplex again is it's a completely different subset of goals. So it's like each one of those needs to be like really carefully thought through. We're we're kind of we're getting close to like the 40-minute mark here, Felix. What in terms of goal setting, is there anything that you'd like to close on?
I think the biggest thing is you just got to remember, with success, it's a journey and not a destination. So a lot of people kind of, when they tie in a goal or a success, they kind of see a point they want to reach and they just focus on that, and they don't enjoy the whole process of getting there. And I think the most important is actually being able to go through that process and see yourself develop and grow, whether it be through fitness or success in your business or your family or whatever it might be, and really take it for that and not try to rush things. Obviously, it's good to have a time associated to what your goals are, so you can actually have sustainable steps in place. But I think have things in place which you're going to enjoy and not feel like it's a chore. I think that's probably the biggest thing. Yeah. How about yourself? I mean, what was some really good some takeaways that you can definitely share with us?
Look, I'd probably echo. what I mentioned earlier. I think that consistency. So I feel like once you've got a goal mapped out, like it's for me, the two big things are one, consistency and moving toward it. So each day doing the things that you need to do to move closer toward your goals. And then in addition to that, I'd also say like there are times when people need to course correct, and there are times when you need to like reassess and think, okay, yeah, like if say you've got like a metric and you hit that number too early, maybe you recognize that you've performed better than you thought you would, and then maybe you need to stretch yourself a little bit next time. So what
Mm.
I'm saying is, one, be consistent, and two, have a mindset that's flexible enough that you can course correct and reassess as things go. It's the same even with purchasing property. Like, a lot of people are surprised by what they can do. They're surprised by the results of purchasing and how it can change their life. I mean, like, we've seen even just last year, like how many people have made hundreds of thousands of dollars just by owning a property. Like, and it's not a guarantee by any means, but certainly if one of your goals is to build wealth and create wealth, like having a goal to use property as a vehicle toward that it's a good one to have, because it's a great asset class to work with. It's
Yeah.
something where you know and it's something where, and you know this better than anyone, where once you own the asset, you can manufacture equity, you control it. It's not something where, I got nothing against investing in stocks, but like, if you invest money into the stock market, someone else is in control. Like, someone else is running that business, other people are buying those products and services. Whereas when you own real estate, you've got control. You can determine what you want to build, obviously within the parameters of like the local council areas, etc. But like, you can determine and you can manufacture and add value. So I think if you've got a goal to build wealth and you decide that using property is the vehicle that you want to do to get there, the things that we've talked about, working backwards, getting in touch with a buyer's agent, getting in touch with a mortgage broker, looking at your savings patterns, thinking about the debts that you currently have, and getting all your ducks lined up. Those are great. It's a great little subset that we've discussed today for someone to get into a position to purchase.
Yeah, and like, if you're looking to build wealth through property, this is the perfect platform, because Tim and I are going to be definitely diving much deeper into specific areas and topics in terms of how to go about that, and strategies that we've used not only for ourselves but our clients, how to go down that path of, whether you want to build a portfolio or whether you just want to manufacture wealth to pay off your mortgage or build, developments. That's exactly what we're going to be diving into over the course of the next 12 months, and really break down each stage in more systematic approaches so that you can follow along. We'll hop out to a couple of sites as well, and share those as well, so you can see what they look like. But we're really excited. I think it's going to be a great platform for us to really share and give that knowledge out to other people. I think that's a really good goal for. I'm really excited for this goal. Yeah.
Me too, Felix. And I think this was a good chat. I think we should probably end on that note. I feel like we've discussed a lot about goals and actionable things that people can start doing as well straight away, if they have got something. Like, where we've discussed fitness, we've discussed property, we've discussed health and business. If people have got, or if they're involved in those industries, or if they're looking to purchase, now is the time to start planning, to start setting goals. Actually, I guess just before we finish, one of the other things that I thought was really sort of pertinent that you and I spoke about recently was, if you have a goal, it's the end of the year and it's coming up to the new year. Why wait till the new year? Why say I'm going to do this in the new year? If you've got something you want to do, you should start immediately,
Absolutely.
and prove to yourself that what you want to do is valuable to you. If your goal is to lose weight, to build muscle, to build your business, if it means something to you, if you really wanted to be healthy, why wouldn't you start straight away? Why would you defer something that's healthy?
That's
Or
right.
why would you defer something, not something that's healthy? Why would you defer something that's important to you?
Yeah, there's no time like now. So yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely, man.
yeah, yeah, yeah. All right,
All
Felix.
right,
Well,
cool,
good to
bro.
chat again.